Hey everybody, Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon coming at you today with a few malicious compliance stories. First one, how my old boss ended up buying the customer a new shed. Let's jump right in. Check out my new channel, Canadian Rob's Workshop, link in the description down below. I do tree work for a living, and the last boss I had was the kind of guy who thought he knew everything and demanded that you did things his way when he was on site. The day this story takes place was no different than any other time that boss decided to show up. We were there to drop a massive sunburst locust tree over 3 feet wide at the trunk and branches that spanned over 60 feet. It was a beautiful tree, but the customer wanted it gone, sadly. The customer had a brand new, empty shed on one side of his property. There was enough room to drop the tree, but only if aimed just right. I set a pull rope into the tree and had my crew set our winch up on a tree along the back line of the lot to pull the locust over. My boss was not happy with my choice of felling direction and demanded in his "I want to speak to your manager" voice that my guys move the winch to a tree 40 feet to the right and told me that I was to aim the tree in his newly selected direction, directly towards the shed. I told him that was a bad idea, but he wouldn't listen. He wanted to show the customer that he had absolute power over us and used one of his favorite lines: "If you don't want to be here, then leave." He knew I was wearing golden handcuffs and leaving wasn't financially responsible of me with a young family at home. I accepted that he was not going to allow me or my guys to put the winch anywhere close to where it should have been and set to putting my notch into the tree. I started aiming the tree to where I knew it should have been aimed, but was again screamed at by my boss because I wasn't following his direct orders. This is where I finally gave in and aimed the tree directly towards where he wanted me to, towards the shed. My aim could not have been more true. The notch and back cut were absolutely textbook. My guys applied power to the winch and we put that tree down exactly where it was aimed. The new vinyl shed. It exploded. My boss did too. The customer calmly walked out, put his hand on my shoulder, looked directly at my boss and exclaimed, "Sean did exactly what you told him to. When will you be installing my new shed?" I walked away from the two of them immediately, as I did not need to be directly in the middle of that conversation when I knew I still needed to get the tree from the backyard and into the truck. Things then got even worse for my boss. He was the kind of boss to shout orders but not actually do anything himself. That day, he decided to try to help out by taking the climbing saw, which is not set up to be used on the ground, and start hacking away at branches using only one hand on the saw. Very dangerous. We all knew that we would get screamed at if we said anything to him, so we did our best to stay clear of the whirling dervish and do what we could at a safe distance. 5 or so minutes into his arbor assault, I hear him start screaming and see a chainsaw flying across the yard. Remember earlier where I said what he was doing was dangerous? The saw kicked back at him and he put his left hand up as a reaction, damn near cutting off 3 fingers from his left hand. We managed to get that idiot bandaged up and driven off to the hospital where the med staff were able to save the fingers that eventually had to build the customer a new shed. I think everybody involved was pretty lucky in this case that the customer was so understanding. I can't see that happening in a whole lot of situations. On to our next story. Impatience ended up costing him an extra $1,300 for a tree removal and a broken deck. I work for a tree removal company and we had a job in this more wealthy summer home trailer park type community. Our company has a monopoly over this 70-acre wooded paradise because of our excellent reputation and service. It's amazing how word of mouth gets us nearly all of our work within this area. This gated community is mainly populated by old retired folks from Chicago that travel to live here from May through early September. During the colder months, it's a ghost town as they fly south for the winter. Anyway, Dave is a very impatient person, even more so when summer is winding down and everyone is trying to wrap things up at their summer homes before leaving. Dave wants us to take a semi-critical dead tree down along the back of his house so he can have a new deck built off his house before leaving for the year. Unfortunately for him, the ground this time of year is soft, wet, and unforgiving for heavy equipment needed to take this tree down properly. Plus, we don't believe the tree is an imminent threat, so we tell Dave that once the ground freezes, we can access his backyard without damaging his lawn and settle on a $700 price tag. He happily agrees and isn't heard from for 6 weeks. Now, a month and a half has passed and the ground hasn't frozen, unsurprisingly, but Dave starts to get upset that he hasn't started his deck project and fall is here. Dave decides, unknowingly to us, to start building his deck around the tree up to the point he just has to put the deck boards on. We drive by on our way to do a removal down the road and can't believe the thought process of this man. Now, we have to call him and tell him that we can't take his tree down without hiring a crane and an extra charge. There is just no way to take it down traditionally now that our drop zone for brush has concrete pillars and wood boards running several feet on each side. We tell him that this crane will cost upwards of $1,000 for the day on top of the original quote, and taking into account extra time needed. Obviously, he is not happy. Dave decides our price is ridiculous and fires us from the job. We warn him of the danger this dead tree can pose to his house and new deck, but he is unwilling to pay to have it taken down. So we oblige and go on to other customers. A few months later, during a January ice storm, a branch falls and clips the corner of his house and smashes part of the deck. We happily came across this while on our way to another job. We send him pictures and warn him of the potential damage if more branches were to break off. He has no choice but to have us take the tree down out of fear of future damage. A job that would have cost him $700 and took us 3 hours now was a $2,000 job and 8 hours of work. There's really not that much to say here besides the fact that the customer kinda deserved what they got. On to our next story. Only cut down part of the tree. So, thought I would tell you of a story of malicious compliance on the part of my father. Years ago, we lived in a house on a large plot. House built up on the front third, leaving a massive rear garden. And in there, at the bottom, was a very large avocado pear tree. Large tree, a good number of years old, and bore some pretty large pears every year. However, it had a split trunk and also was tall, around 15 meters high, taller than the telephone cabling that ran along the bottom of the property, and which also ran through this tree to the house. Dad liked the avocado pears though. Because of the height of the tree, they only grew at the top, so he made a 6-meter long pole with a net, the swimming pool net pole with a broken net attached, in order to attempt to get at least a few undamaged. But this only got the lower third of the tree, and the top fruit would fall down in the wind, shattering on the ground. They also fell on the neighbor's property, and his roof had received a few holes from these missiles landing on it. But the neighbor and my father were firm friends, so would fix the holes together, but were getting fed up of this tree. So one day, they both confronted my mother and insisted they trim the tree, and she eventually agreed. She insisted that they only cut down half the tree, and they both agreed to this. So Saturday comes, Dad has rented a chainsaw, they have a nice sharp blade, a lot of strong rope, and the telco tech there to repair the phone line, again, when the tree snaps it. The neighbor and my dad talk about this job, and, as mother is out shopping, they come to the conclusion, along with the telco tech, that the best solution is to obey and cut half the tree down. Unanimously, they come to the conclusion that the best half is the bottom half, and I am sent up the tree, lightest person, and we had the telco ladder to get me up 6 meters to where the trunk was still thick enough to be useful, as avocado wood is not the strongest wood, and even very thick branches will break easily. So, rope attached, chainsaw at the ready, and we all pull on the rope at a long distance while the trunk has the notch cut and the rear cut through till the timber moment fell roughly where we wanted it, just flattened a few banana stems that were in the way, but those would regrow anyway pretty fast. Telco Tech sets ladder again, and I attach rope again, and again tree falls in the right direction, this time taking the phone line with it. Telco Tech splices in a new section and goes up the pole to connect to the pole again and leaves. Then we got the task of moving the chunks as they were cut, making a few piles of leaves and twigs for burial in the ground and a few piles of wood that was left to dry as firewood. Dad and the neighbor cracked open some beers to celebrate this occasion as they finished up. Then Mom came home and walked through to the back. She came down shouting, what had they done? She had agreed to only half the tree, and they had cut it off at knee height. As one, the neighbor and Dad replied with big grins that they had indeed only taken down half the tree and had decided the bottom half was the best part to remove as it was easiest. Not their fault the top did not stay up there. Banana shrubs grew back fast, and we simply got avocado pears from the neighbor as he had a few small trees that you could pick from easily, and we gave bananas from the harvest we had. His roof stayed intact, no more half-kilo missiles punching through the asbestos sheeting. As one of the commenters on this story says, bananas, avocados, and asbestos roofing? I wonder where this takes place. I couldn't determine this from any of the comments because it appears that OP didn't answer the question. So let's bring it to the viewers and listeners. Where do you think this took place? I'd love to see your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to thank all of the OPs for posting their stories to the Malicious Compliance subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description down below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.